15th of February, very little to do. No toilet seat in our cell, partially broken window. 16th of February, very cold last night due to window not closing properly. Slept in most clothes I've slept in so far. Showers are gross, with half an inch of fetid water covering the floors.
Life in Wandsworth Prison. The grim details of desperate days recorded in a diary by 34-year-old Will Plastow. He's remanded in custody, awaiting trial on charges linked to a pro-Palestinian protest, which he denies.
18th of February, no time outside at all today. 23rd of February, better day, mostly due to exercise and writing. Hardly any suicidal thoughts today.
He sends the diary entries to his mother Jane as a record of his time there.
I have to say, as his mother, it is not easy reading. It says things like, "Today was a good day, I didn't have suicidal thoughts." My son was not remotely suicidal before he went to jail.
For Jane and her son, it's their first experience of the prison system, and it's left both of them horrified.
He's been in cells which are dungeon cells, so they're literally no natural light. On one occasion, in one of the dungeon cells, the light went out, and all they had in the cell was a tiny reading light for 5 days in winter. A couple of times he's been moved to cells which are not just dirty, but have human excrement smeared on them, which they have to clean up. Quite often there have been rodent droppings around the place, and just general filth is very common.
Wandsworth's history is beyond troubled. It was issued with an urgent notification last year after what the Inspector of Prisons called a catastrophic inspection, symbolising the worst of the English prison system. It was given £100 million to reverse the decline, and levels of violence and drugs are down. But Jane says so much is still to improve.
The governor at Wandsworth says that everybody gets 4 to 5 hours a day out of their cell. That is not true. My son and his cellmate, at my request, did a totting up, and I think over about 56 days there were in excess of 10 days when they didn't get out at all. The governor at Wandsworth says he's increasing educational and other opportunities. My son has never got to the library in Wandsworth.
In A wing, prisoners are routinely locked up 24/7.
Now determined to fight for better conditions, she travelled from her home in Leeds to join this public meeting about Wandsworth.
A wing is a disgusting pit where there are fights every day, and it should be shut immediately.
It's a 180-year-old building. It's overcrowded, crumbling. There's not enough staff and too many people stuck in a dump.
The event was billed as the chance to meet the governor, but the governor didn't turn up.
There is a serious lack of leadership in prison, and it's indicative tonight that the governor didn't even have the guts to show. It's outrageous.
Lynn and Julie's sons were both in Wandsworth last year, in, they say, horrific conditions. They came to ask the governor face to face whether things are changing. The fact that he didn't turn up, what do you read from that?
He talks the talk, but I don't think he walks the walk. I would have thought more of him if he'd have showed his face tonight. Even if it was a flying visit, I would have thought, well, fair play.
Catering has been closed.
Liz Bridge, a former chaplain at the prison, set up tonight's meeting. She accepts things are improving, but she's still worried.
I want it to be a flagship. I want it to have hot water, showers for people. I want people to come out better than they went in. Things are moving, but I'm frightened. I'm frightened of a change of governor. I'm frightened of less money. I'm frightened that people will go off the boil, because it was such a dump and so damaged, and it still is damaging. men in there.
The Ministry of Justice told us the Governor couldn't attend because of extenuating circumstances. However, the prison's ombudsman was there. He's investigating a number of deaths at Wandsworth and said he wanted to hear what the public had to say.
I have to say I share some of those concerns. I think the number of deaths, self-inflicted deaths, that we've had in Wandsworth over the last couple of years is just too high. And the fact that this community has come together is a real light in the darkness to say that there are people who care, and that the pressure that they may be able to bring for action to be taken, I think, is welcome.
But Wandsworth is just one of a raft of prisons across the country that are overcrowded and struggling. A huge amount rests on tomorrow's sentencing review, which has been looking at how to ease the pressure while still protecting the public. Deborah Coles heads the charity inquest, which supports families of prisoners who've died in jails like Wandsworth. She's not confident the review will deliver.
I'm afraid that I have seen reviews, reports, inquiries come out, make recommendations, and yet we haven't seen the radical overhaul of our prison system that we so desperately need. It takes political courage to do something radical and to reduce the prison population so that for those who are left, there can be meaningful regimes and more humane conditions.
The Ministry of Justice told us in a statement, this government inherited a justice system in crisis with prisons close to collapse. We've announced a record £4.7 billion prison building programme, and we will reform sentencing to ensure we never run out of prison places again. The current crisis has put much of the focus on the number of prison places, less on what those places are actually like. If the review is to work, campaigners say fewer people in jails must lead to changing the jails for those left inside.